Good evening, esteemed colleagues, associates, and the intern who keeps stealing my good pens. Welcome to the Productivity Zone. We have a meeting today, of course, to discuss a very important message for the whole company, and that would be we're back to business. And we are live. Welcome to the Productivity Zone. You're watching Ian.tv. This is my office where tonight we will be interviewing a very special guest about the topic of Wiccan. Now, for centuries, the word witch has stirred both fear and fascination, whispered in shadows, written in forbidden books, and spoken by those who dared to embrace the mystery of the unseen. But beyond superstition and fables lies a path through life, one rooted in nature and balance, and in the quiet rhythm of the seasons. This is the world of Wicca, a modern spiritual movement drawing from the ancient craft of the wise, where the divine is found not in the distant heavens, but in the turning of the earth beneath our feet. Tonight we step beyond the myth and into the circle to understand what it truly means to walk down the witch's path. Here to discuss this exciting topic with us is Cottage Wiccan, Brittany. Brittany, how are you doing? Hello, hello.
I am very well.
Welcome to the Productivity Zone.
I feel most welcomed here.
Now, I gotta thank you because, of course, we're conducting this interview outside of witching hours, so I really do appreciate you joining us when you are off duty.
Well, actually, as anyone else who practices a religious faith will say that there's no off-duty to how you practice what you believe. It's simply more active at certain times than others.
I understand that. So I have to say I was a little bit nervous because I don't think I've ever talked to a cottage witch before, or at least if I did, I wasn't aware of it at all. But I do trust you because a very good friend of the Productivity Zone recommended that we have a discussion, and that would be Kyle. So we got to give a shout out to Kyle, who is our cryptozoology specialist. So thank you so much, Kyle. Quick moment of Kyle. Thank you, Kyle. So, but I trust you. I trust you. I don't think that I'm going to be susceptible to any hexes, curses, or spells tonight. But just in case, I do have crystal protection and the KJV. So we've got that on hand just in case. So, Brittany, is crystal protection something you would recommend?
Yes, actually. I'm currently myself wearing a clear quartz crystal. They are the universal healer, and they help amplify other crystals and access their power more fully. I am wearing a turquoise, which is for wisdom, patience, and knowledge. And I'm wearing a black tourmaline, which is a grounding and a protection against negativity. So it depends on how you arrange your crystals, but I would definitely recommend crystal protection. Just make sure that the crystals get along with each other. I've had people hold crystals in their hands and they can't figure out why it feels off, but they do.
Okay, that is definitely something to make a special note about. So I was told that, and I'm not susceptible to any hexes, curses, or spells tonight. Is that right?
Well, Hexes and curses are actually off the table for Wiccans, believe it or not, because our main tenet is, and ye harm none, do what ye will, which basically translates to you can do what you want and what you feel you need to get done, but you cannot cause harm to others, intentionally or otherwise. It reverberates back on us threefold. So no hexes or curses, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't need to put a spell on you. You came to me, and I always feel the need to share knowledge with those who come asking and seeking it.
I am just relieved to hear that. Okay, that takes a lot of the pressure off.
Well, I'm glad that we're having this conversation. It's always a nice conversation to have with people.
And it's great to learn more about you and about this interesting practice that you are engaged in. So just quickly more about the crystals. Am I using these correctly? I was instructed to number one, ask the crystal if it's willing to cooperate with me, and stuff like that. Leave it in the sun to charge it. And what I need to do is I need to imagine the crystal growing to encapsulate my whole body in order to get protection from it. Is that something that you are familiar with? Have I been instructed correctly?
You have been instructed correctly. Depending on what the crystal is, can affect its intentions and its ability to shield you. Certain crystals are not meant for shielding. They are meant for protection. And so what type of crystal do you have? Do you know?
I don't know, but I think it's some kind of quartz crystal that I actually found on the ground when I had just been told by another one of my associates that I might need crystal protection for this interview. And then I happened to pull into a gas station and look on the ground, and here was my my quartz that showed up there. So hopefully I'm in good hands.
Quartz is a very good stone. Most of quartz out there are positive vibrations, everything from rose quartz, which is about love, from everything from self-love to romantic to family to friendship, to clear quartz, as I said, is a healing quartz, to smoky quartz, which is also a grounding and shielding in crystal as well.
I got you. Okay, that is great detail. So Wiccan is something that could be considered shrouded in secrecy. It's surely not part of mainstream knowledge or something that people in the broader public are aware of. Could you illuminate some of these terms that we're familiar with? You know, we've heard of witchcraft, pagan, and some have heard of Wicca. What is the difference between these terms?
All right. Well, let's start with the biggest umbrella there, witchcraft. Witchcraft is basically the practice of any magical craft that you wish to perform. It does not limit you to a specific type of magical practice or even a specific religious belief for that magical practice. You could be a Christian and perform witchcraft. It really is based on your spiritual belief, how you channel the magic that you have and the magic that you use in your objects to project the manifested will that you wish to come into being. Pagan is literally translated to those who do not follow an Abrahamic faith, which is the big three of Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim or Islamic beliefs. Those are all Abrahamic faiths, and they're also monotheistic. Pagans are usually those who believe in polytheism, multiple gods and goddesses. Wiccas are a branch itself that believes in a god and a goddess and their connection to nature, specifically that both are light and both are dark, and they show these different aspects in different ways. We believe in a balance between the masculine and the feminine, and more often than not, we also believe in the balance of light and dark. Dark is not bad, light is not good. They work together to make the universe balanced.
Right. And so, can I ask, why do you specify cottage Wiccan?
Well, just like there's many types of Christians out there, everything from Protestants to Lutherans to Congregationalists. There are different types of Wiccan practices out there. I mainly identify as a cottage variety because of the way that my craft connects with me. I am most able to channel my magic, and I think, or at least I feel more in harmony with my magic when I do tasks in the kitchen, when I do things in my garden, where I do warding and protecting of my home. I like to create the sanctuary within the home, and that's where my magical home being is more centered to the heart and the home. I'm not a person that travels often simply because I am a homebody, and again, it connects me that way. I'm not a person that needs to do a lot of higher magic to feel that connection. Today, I was making a pot of soup that took 6 hours because that's what the recipe called for. And the entire time, I was putting my magical touch into it, channeling a family member that was actually famous for making that particular recipe and hoping that they connected with me as I made it. And I shared it with my family as part of that.
Great answer. Okay, that really clears that up. So you're focused a lot on how this magic can help you around the house and contribute to uh, your domestic life specifically.
Yes, it's not wholly based on the domestic life because I can actually go to other people's homes and I can cleanse their spaces and put up protecting and wards, which are basically charms and drawings that we refer to as sigils or vine ruins to put up a full on shield for a certain area, and the shields connect with each other to form that protective unit around the house or apartment, or even just the bedroom can be warded as well for those who are still in what we call the broom closet.
Okay, well that's very important for a witch to have a good broom closet, I would presume.
Yes. Well, the term is for those who are practicing the craft of any way, shape, or form, or are Wiccans, but they don't come out to their family members, their friends, because as people who would get out of the closet normally, it's a bit of a shock to most people to find out that this person is a practicing witch.
Well, I would imagine. But I mean, getting to talk to you, even just in these few minutes, I can see that there's really not much sinister behind what you're doing. So we thank you for elucidating this topic. So
There are others who would practice the what I would call Bane magic, the curses and hexes you were worried about, but Wiccans don't do that because, again, it's against one of our most defined tenets of our practices.
Okay, and can you? I know you said that earlier, but can you reiterate that for anyone who just logged on and might have just joined us?
Well, like I said, one of our most highest laws, because there's very few in our practices, but "and ye harm none, do what ye will." We do not place restraints on ourselves, but we do not harm others, intentionally or otherwise. Otherwise, the rule of three will come back to us, and we will get either 3 times what we sent out for malicious rebounded back onto us, or if we put out good and positive things, that also comes rebounding back to us.
That is fascinating. Okay, so it's almost like a system of karma within within your faith. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Like I said, we don't have a lot of, I would say, hard, fast rules, but that is one of the few hard, fast rules we have out there.
So we're learning that this isn't necessarily a practice that is involved with inflicting harm on other people, like so many people might assume. What values go along with this belief system? What are the important facets of values that go into being a witch?
Well, one of the more also important ones out there is to know yourself. You can't practice magic, which is part of your core, part of your craft, part of who you are, if you don't know yourself. The other part is to, again, know your craft. When a Wiccan is first initiated or first brought into a circle, they have had to complete at least a year and a day of study. That way they know what they're getting into, what the pros and cons and all the dangers and benefits there could be for those who practice the craft.
Okay, and how about free will? Is free will something that is a strong value to a witch?
Of course. Since we cannot harm others, that means that we cannot take away their freedom of choice. I might want to help a friend who has fertility issues, for example. I might want to make her a fertility charm. I can't do that without her consent. And I cannot offer any spells or charms for a person without their consent, because that is a way of taking away their free will and their freedom of choice, which is, again, not a very good thing to do because it harms them in the end.
Okay, that's fascinating. So you mentioned that Wiccans are brought into the circle. What does that look like? What is the initiation of a witch like? And how does community and family play into the life of a cottage Wiccan?
Well, for most witches or Wiccans, you are brought into the circle as a novice or initiate. You study with a coven, and you decide if that coven is for you. Covens are autonomous. We do not answer to each other. We do not have a bishop or pope or higher up that's in charge of everyone. We are completely autonomous from each other, meaning that you could have, say, a eclectic group practicing in a town. In that same town, there could be a Gardenian coven. They don't answer to each other. They might be in their completely different practices, but they respect the fact that they both are of the magical faith beliefs. They just believe that you're supposed to practice it this way or that way, or that's how they feel more connected spiritually to the god and the goddess and to their magic.
I see. Okay. Well, that clears that up. So you mentioned Gardenian. I think I noticed that, and I think we're going to save that for later. But I'm just going to point out that I noticed that you mentioned that. So you yourself grew up in New England, and that is an area that has kind of a history. When we look back in history, of course, famous events like the Salem witch trials. We actually saw a period of time where witches and pagans were actually somewhat persecuted. Is that true?
Yes. The most famous was the Salem witch trials because of the play The Crucible, actually. But there have been other witch trials that actually predated that one. The first ever witch that was convicted in the New World was actually in Windsor, Connecticut, ironically my hometown.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and that actually predated it by by a decade or so.
Right. So do you think that is there a strong root of Wiccan and paganism in New England going back all the way to that?
I believe that there are strong roots to the practice in New England, but I also believe that that is because New England was populated sooner than some of the other colonies. Virginia also was highly populated, and if you get to learn a little bit, the Appalachian folk magic is actually very powerful, which was also developed in that region, in that area, which is a different type of craft, but it is, in a way, the same practices and beliefs passed down through the generations.
I gotcha. Well, this is such a fascinating topic, Brittany. I do have more questions for you, but we're going to go to a short break with some music from our musical maestro, Cold Wave Dave. We'll be right back. And we are back. Welcome to the Productivity Zone. We are talking with Cottage Witch, Brittany, from New England. And it is a very exciting conversation. So, and thank you to Cold Wave Dave, actually, for the brief musical appearance. So, back to the interview. We've got Brittany, Cottage Wiccan, Cottage Witch. She is a practicing witch in the craft, which is, of course, the faith of Wicca. So, Brittany, I understand that you have a library of over 70 books in which you have studied the topic of Wicca. What kind of authors appear in this selection?
The first book I ever read for discovering Wicca at its source is actually called Wicca, The Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. He's one of our more famous authors, actually, considering that he's been publishing for quite a while.
Okay, and I had a question for you. In this library, is there anything by a person called Gerald Gardner? Who is Gerald Gardner?
Well, Gerald Gardner was, I wouldn't say the founder of Wicca, but he was what we would call the father of it, simply because he was the first to come out about witchcraft as a religion during the 1950s, actually, in England, just after they had repealed the law that banned witchcraft. He finally was able to talk about the spirituality of it, how we connect with the elements, which are 5 actually in total: air, fire, water, earth, and spirit, and how nature is part of a pattern and we're part of that cycle of life as well.
I gotcha. So tell me more about these elements. Are you in touch with all of these different elements, or is there one that is maybe more strong for you than others?
The elements reside within all of us. They do have ones that are more prominent than others. I am mostly an earth and water-based person. I'm very grounded in myself, but I learn to adapt with the changes. I try to keep my temper in check, so my fiery outbursts are limited. But with air comes not exactly a nomad style of life, but ability to wander and be more free and less restrained in that way, which is something I'm not particularly in touch with, though I do have, luckily, a lot of air sign intelligence in me.
I gotcha. So what entities are you in touch with? Are you in touch with any particular entities, or is it more limited to these elements that you described?
I personally, I do not have a familiar, if that's what you're wondering. I do commune with my ancestors occasionally, though I don't do it often. I am spiritually connected to a few specific goddesses, if that is what you're wondering as well. Mostly hearth and flame goddesses, believe it or not, simply because that's connecting to the kitchen craft of my practice. Uh, but I'm also not in touch with a spirit guide in particular otherwise.
Okay, well, that answers that. So, a few weeks ago, it was towards the end of September, it felt like everything was just ramping up in the news, you know, for me personally. What was going on? What event triggered that swell of activity? Was there something that went on in the last week of September that I should know about?
Well, in the last week of September, we had the autumnal equinox, which is one of our sacred Sabbaths. We actually consider that to be a solar day or solar celebration. It is also considered a harvest celebration because that's when we bring in the last of the harvest, as it were, or when we were a more agricultural-based society.
So what kind of effects can we expect around the autumnal equinox? What does that insinuate for us as people?
Well, the autumnal equinox is literally the cross quarter of the year. It lets us know that this is equal light and equal day, and equal night and equal day. And the night is approaching now more so. We lose light. We no longer have more light in our day. We have more nighttime darkness resting period. And it's actually the last holy day actually of our year. Our new year is coming up actually by the end of this month, Sahen, which is for most people Halloween.
So people have a lot of associations with Halloween, and they think of witches, they think of witchcraft, they think, you know, cauldrons, Frankenstein, zombies, ghosts. What is Halloween really all about? And what do you think about Halloween as a witch practicing in Wicca yourself?
For me, Sahen is a time to connect with my ancestors. This is when the veil, which is the curtain between the perceived reality that we all live in and the reality of the spirit realm, thins to its most at that time. Spirits can cross over and visit us. We can commune with the dead more easily. A lot of people have a little taboo with all that simply because as they don't believe that the dead should be bothered. But if you're going there just to tell them about your day, how the year has been, wish them well in that realm, I don't see how it's much different from visiting a cemetery any other time of the year, other than they'll hear you a lot better.
Oh, of course.
I also like to go visit my ancestors' grave, and I leave offerings for them. Money, some seeds, some of their favorite foods, called a dumb feast. You're giving them these things to let them know that you are still remembering them, that you still have them in your heart and in your daily life, even if it's just a little bit. And it's a way that if they want to send a message to you, you're giving them the go ahead to do so.
Okay, so is Wiccan in competition with other faiths? Is it one person's right and one person's wrong, and other people are, not interpreting the world correctly, or are these faiths in interplay between different people? How does that look from the perspective of a witch?
Well, for the majority of us Wiccans, we believe that we cannot be judgmental of other people's faiths and practices. We've been persecuted for centuries. We've been literally killed for our beliefs and for our practices. So we do not believe in passing on that type of negativity and, I won't say prejudice, but that kind of closed-mindedness toward other people's faiths. We do not believe in converting anyone, actually. We do not recruit. We let people know that if they decide to walk this path, here are the options that they may partake in, and here are some things that we found to be useful for our practices. They could use it, they cannot, no judgment whatsoever with it.
I gotcha. Okay, that's fascinating. So, you mentioned earlier that you may have had a friend, or you hypothetically may have, say you knew somebody who needs assistance in the department of fertility, and that you may create some kind of charm for your person that helps them achieve this with permission, of course.
Of course.
How does that work? How does one create this charm? Is it a conjuring? Is it some kind of invocation, or is it some kind of potion? How does that work?
It could be many things. It depends on what you're hoping for. For the potion, it could be you create a essential oil that is stimulating to them in that way. And you can make it so that when they wear it, their partner or they feel more inclined to being intimate with them, and therefore you're feeling a little bit more relaxed, and pregnancy occurs more easily that way. Or it could be you just want to have something in your home that promotes it, since you don't want to put something on your body. You could create a charm bag, or you can do a witch's ladder, which is where you tie specific ingredients that have meaning or significance for fertility, and then you can hang it on the back of your bed, or you place it underneath the mattress that you share with your partner. And that could be a way to increase fertility as well. You can say the chant or have them recite it in the privacy of their own home, because not everyone's open to you literally performing a fertility rite in front of other people, or even just in front of their partner. They can be still a little squeamish. They might ask for it, but they are a little bit shy about it, I guess is the best way to put it for that particular instance.
I gotcha. So what other scenarios are these charms going to be useful for?
Well, as you had the crystal for you, protection. Others can be for luck in money or business, or in finding a partner. They could be, love spells can be useful to a degree. You cannot take away the person's will, so they have to be crafted very particularly. You have to write the words with intent for the spell. You have to do it at a specific time, because, believe it or not, Fridays are connected to Venus and Freya, the goddesses of love and marriage, from two different pantheons. And so it's been fairly conducive by most European descent that Fridays are a very fun, lovey day.
I've noticed that. I call it the Friday energy. And, that's a day of the week when a lot of people go out, a lot of people, do activities. So what are the other connections to the days of the week and these certain feelings? Is that Is that a factor for you as a witch?
It is actually. Mondays are connected to the moon. So if you have something that is needed for a spell that requires time, like you plant a seed to start on Monday, so that way it can grow into its full power. And then you are okay with it waiting a little bit longer to happen. It happens when it's time, when it's in cycle. Thursday is definitely more this is when you seek justice, this is when you fight, this is when you have power to put forth your manifestation if you have to do battle of some sort, physically, emotionally, financially, judicially. This is the day that you would evoke that spell.
I
Sunday
gotcha.
is a day of rest, but it's also solar day. So if you have something that's like very sun and day oriented, like you want to have the power of the sun, the power of fire, something to inspire you and make you heat up spiritually, that would be the day to do it. Also connected with several other people's belief that it is a very powerful day spiritually.
Very true. Okay. So, do you think there's something to that, that there are these hidden aspects of the occult in every day? Because those things that you're describing, they really do seem esoteric. They are Thor, Freya, the moon. These things are not commonly referenced within popular culture, at least in America. Um, Yet they seem to have some kind of importance. So, what is the hidden occult significance to everyday life?
Life is meant to be lived with intent. If you put intent into something as simple as making your coffee for the day, you pour the water into the chamber, and that's the water element right there. You turn it on, there's the heat, there's the fire. The grounds themselves are earth, right there. The steam rising is air. And the spirit that you put into it is the intention of this coffee will awaken me. This coffee will help me focus and bring myself to right. This coffee will be able to help me throughout my day as I take my steps forward.
You
You put
mentioned
that
coffee.
intent
You're
into.
speaking my language. You're speaking my language
I'm
right there.
I'm a tea drinker, not really a coffee
Okay.
drinker, but the majority of America prefers coffee. So again, the intent of what you do with it's something that people mindlessly do more often than not. But if you put that intent into it, you'll find that you are more awake, you are more focused, you are these things that you wanted the coffee to do for you. So it is important that when you live life with intent and you put these simple things into practice and in your everyday life, as I do as a cottage witch, it makes you more sure of your practice. It makes you more in control of what your will is and what your beliefs are, because you are making these choices intentionally.
Right. So we've got charms. Do we have rituals? Is rituals something that's important to your faith as a witch?
Yes, actually. We have ebets, which are rituals you do on full moons. You are told to put your crystal out in the sun for charging. You can do the same during a full moon. That light is powerful. It guides you. You can see in the dark. You can see at a time when you're not normally able to see because of that powerful light. The moon is a very powerful goddess. She is considered a goddess across nearly every single faith and belief system out there that has her as an entity.
Okay, that is fascinating. Now, did you do any rituals or any preparations for this interview?
Yes, actually, I, at the beginning of the day, knew I would be doing this interview. So I meditated. I centered myself and I let myself think about what questions might you want to know? What can I do to make it so that this is a nice conversation that we have between us? How can I make sure that people hear this and understand that Wiccans are a religious faith, that male or female, we are able to call ourselves witches. Not everyone in the faith does, but the majority of us do. And how can I express myself in a way that is positive so people do not think witch and then all of a sudden they start running away in fear?
I gotcha. So it's very important to you to kind of dispel some of these myths that go along uh, with Wiccan and witches. What are some of the
Yes.
other myths that stick in people's minds?
Well, when you hear the term witch, you think old lady in a pointy hat, usually. At least that's what majority of people think. Or someone with a very large nose or face blemishes of some sort. Not a very attractive person or a very trustworthy person because they look scary.
Wait, so you're not wearing a pointy hat right now?
I have a pointy hat that I use
Okay.
at my rituals because I believe it helps me channel my power. But no, I'm not
I
wearing one
knew
right
it.
now.
I knew it. Okay.
I do have an amulet that I'm currently wearing that I usually wear at rituals. It's a pentagram with a crescent moon around it.
Fascinating. And so what does that symbolize for you?
Well, I was born on a Monday, so I always like to connect with the moon in some way, shape, or form. So having the moon with me is always a nice thing. The pentagram is that five-pointed star with a circle around it, with the highest point pointed upward. That is a very, very old symbol of protection. Most people think of the inverted pentagram when they think witchcraft. That is inaccurate. People just connect that because of myths people have propagated to think that witches of all sorts worship the devil when, in fact, I would say nearly none of us do, considering that Wiccas don't have devil in their belief system whatsoever. There is no devil.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So we've got charms, we've got rituals, we have sigils, and these different symbols. Which one of these can I use to protect my computer from computer viruses?
Well, one of my favorite protective ruins, actually, which is a very Nordic tradition, and it looks like the peace sign without a circle around it. And you put the line in the center and the V at the top. You can draw that on your laptop, and when you do that, be it with a marker or whatever you want to do for writing, you put in the intention of this is protecting from things that cause me harm. While I do also recommend a good malware system to help with that too, but magically
Okay.
that can help.
I'll have to keep that in mind. I might need to try that. So, what would you say for someone who wants to be successful in business? Can the Wiccan faith interact with success in business, or is there no connection?
While we cannot take away another person's free will, we can put our will and our beliefs and our manifestations into the universe and say, I want to be successful in my business. I want to generate more money and more income for my family and myself. And to do that, you can use money spells or luck charms, whichever it is that you prefer. It's again specific to the person and what they want to do. Most people can take a green candle, have some money underneath it, be it coins or a bill of any sort. You light the candle, and when you do that, you can simply say, this is me sending out to the universe my wish to earn more through legal and ethical means. I will put forth the effort. I will do my best to succeed, but I am also telling the universe that it shall happen, that it will come to be, or something along those lines. Because, again, each person is different. Each person could be negative with their intentions. If they say, I just want to earn money, that won't get them anything. If they're not doing it responsibly, they're not doing it ethically. The universe will basically say, you want this to happen, but you don't want to be the positive force to make it happen. We're not going to have that happen. You call it karma. I call it the law of three.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So we're going to take a quick break and have a message from our affiliates, the Green Text Pro. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Everybody General. Who is the Everybody? The Everybody is a figure alive today who has completely useless spiritual powers, including the ability to shit through his member with his conscious and unconscious mind, and intuitively receive guidance from the forces of Kek. He works to block people from their true potential, opposing those who are weak. He is a homoplasmate, a divine synergy, the coalition between man and Holy Spirit, which means the collective appreciation of a neo-Enochian bicameral consciousness that is rushing into widespread experience. He is a Messiah. He is not like you. He has found the kingdom of God within himself since birth, different from you, who will die an ignorant pleb. Remember that it's him who creates your reality with his hands, thoughts, feelings, and words. No one can decide your fate except for him.
Thank you, Green Text Pro, for that short message for us. We're back. It's the Productivity Zone. You're watching Ian.tv, and we're talking to Brittany, Cottage Witch from New England. So, Brittany, you described to us the ethics and the morals behind your belief system that you're devoted to. You talked about some of the charms and rituals that go into it. What is it that a cottage witch does for fun?
Well, I can't say all cottage witches, but this particular one, I like to read because I love to increase my learning. Because, well, if you stop learning, you kind of stop living. And I like to expand my knowledge, not just about my craft, which you've talked about my collection for that, but also with herbology and herbalism, which is healing through natural means of plants and other items. And I'm also a avid romance reader simply because I love the stories with it. I like to garden. I blend a lot of my different teas, and I love to crochet.
Well, that's lovely. So let's talk more about the herbology. What kind of herbs should people be aware of that are relevant to this kind of spell work and magic?
Well, most people don't know that cinnamon is for prosperity and bringing good fortune to people. People have for centuries had little cinnamon brooms hanging by their doorways. Not really explaining what they are, but they look like a little broom with a small shaft of cinnamon, and then the broom thistles could be anything from twigs to pine needles. A lot of people hang them at their threshold to welcome prosperity into their homes.
I gotcha. Okay, that is fascinating. What other herbs? You mentioned tea.
Yes. Tea itself is a bit of a stimulant, so you can use that to perk up a spell. You could even use coffee grounds if you're more of the coffee drinking variety. Tea, like, if something needs a little kick, you need a spell to work a little faster than you think the universe wants it to, or just because you want to bring energy into a situation, you can use that as part of your spellcraft.
Well, I agree with that. I definitely work a little faster around the productivity zone with a little bit of caffeine myself.
Lemon and salt are also used in cleansing and in grounding, believe it or not. Salt can be used as a protective barrier. You can scatter some on your window edges or just on the outside of your threshold. Also, throw that pinch of salt over your left shoulder to prevent the bad luck of spilling it. But they are really good, and there's a reason why lemon is such a great disinfectant. It literally has been cleansing homes for as long as it's been available for popular use. And it's in order to cleanse the home magically and bacterially. It breaks down and kills a lot of different viruses and the like. And it also gives a smell of refreshment and of just peace with that citrus scent.
Okay, that's a good detail right there. So why is that? I mean, salt, uh, salt is a crystal, right? What role does it play in, preventing, demons or spirits from bothering me?
Salt is what most people would classify as purified earth. Earth is something that is an element, and it's something that literally it grounds people to center themselves. But that spirit line between living and dead, most dead things go back to the earth, their physical form at least. So if you keep the salt at the edge, they cannot cross over that purified earth because of that barrier and boundary. At least that's what I believe and what I have inferred from my own personal practices.
I gotcha. That's a fascinating detail to add to it right there. So I want to ask about different traditions of Wicca. What's the specification between Gardnerian, Alexandrian, and eclectic? What's the difference?
Initiation and the practices within the circle are the main differences between them. Gardenians, you have to be inducted by a Gardenian. You literally have to be able to trace your lineage through to one of his original coven, because only a member of a coven can induct another person into that coven. So you have to be able to trace your line back through there somehow. And particularly Gardenians are the least modest of the group because they believe in practicing skyclad, which means no clothing to be a boundary between you and the magic you're performing in your connection with the earth and those around you.
Right. So that did come up in my research as far as this originating from Gerald Gardner, an Englishman who was a nudist who actually is somewhat of the father, as you said, not the founder, the father of modern Wicca. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a nudist.
Yes.
Wow.
Alexandrites actually were part of his original coven, but they did not think that being sky-clad was mandatory. It was believed that less clothing was better because, again, less boundaries between you and the energy you work with, but it wasn't a end-all, be-all, every practice you do for magic has to be you without clothes. But again, you have to trace your lines back through them to the back. So in a way, it's not exactly hereditary, but most who are part of those covens and those practices are hereditary because it's easier to trace your way back that way.
So you mentioned that a couple times. What is a coven?
A coven is, honestly, two or more witches getting together and practicing magic together and celebrating the Sabbaths together, doing Ebet rituals or other magical rituals. It's usually a high priest or priestess or both, depending on how many are in the group together. Or, like I said, it could be two or more. You could have 2 women, 2 men, a woman, a man. You could have 10 people in there. But covens have to be agreed upon. Once you're elected as the high priest or the high priestess, you are in charge of embodying the god and the goddess during the ceremonies, during the rituals, during those practices in the circle. That's your role. You are the leaders of that particular group. You represent our 2 deities, basically, within the group during that practice. And you help guide the other coven members outside of the circle. However,
Gotcha.
any person who practices Wicca can be a priest or a priestess. You are considered such by your initiation into Wicca.
I see. So you've done a great job at educating us on this topic, and we've learned so much from you, but let's go a layer deeper. So how is it that you personally became interested in this topic, and tell us more about your background and how you got into this?
Well, I am actually a solitary practitioner. I don't participate in coven rituals or practices myself. For I was always a bit of an introvert, more of a, I will be well working in a group, I will be friendly, but I don't derive energy from being in a group for any type of practices. It drains my energy, actually. So my journey as a Wicca actually started when I was not particularly happy with the church I grew up in. They had changed from the community I was used to something that was very distasteful politically and a few other reasons why. So I went searching for a faith that I could spiritually connect with. Somehow, I ended up at a Quaker meeting. And during one of those meetings, I realized that in the quiet meditation, I was bound to nature and to its entities in a way that Christianity couldn't fulfill for satisfaction. So I went looking. My family had always been what we call gifted. We had different abilities, anything from being able to charm animals into trusting us and being comfortable around us, to steering the future after seeing what it was as to how we wanted it to be, to empaths, those who are emotionally connected to others and able to feel others' emotions, physical pain, and otherwise. So I figured, I have this ability. I want to study how I can control and be more aware of this ability. So I went to occult shops, I went to Barnes & Noble, I went to other bookstores, and eventually I found Wicca, which satisfied me spiritually. And this was back in 2019, actually, that I started my journey of study. It was the solstice of 2020 where I did a self-initiation into the religion. and I've been practicing ever since.
That is fascinating. So, what other topics? I hope you found my questions to be at least, palatable, but what stories can you tell and regale us with that would give us a window into this topic in a deeper, more meaningful way? What have you personally experienced that you would tie into this practice of Wicca? Um, can you deepen that a little bit more for us?
I wrote in what we call a grimoire or a book of shadows. It's basically our written account of our journey through the path that we walk. We write down spells, we write down journal entries, we write down days that have importance to us. And one of the first things I ever wrote was when I cast my first circle. It was to help someone bless a stone figure to give them courage and strength when they were fighting for a battle of their health. I called the different quarters. I used simple things of iodized salt, of charcoal, of a burnt match, a candle, some water, or just simple items you could find almost anywhere in your house. And I used my energy to bring it to a point where I would call the blessing upon the figure, and I could feel the energy moving around me in the circle. The outside around the circle became fuzzy, blurred, not really part of that space and time, but part of its own space and time. Again, this was my perception of it, and I blessed it, and then I thanked the god and the goddess for being there and to guide me in this practice. The person still has that stone figure today, and they're actually doing much better.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. What else? Tell us more about your experiences in studying this topic, in engaging in the craft. We want to know more. We're hungry for knowledge. Is there any other stories that you have? I know that you are mostly a individual type of Wiccan, and
There are many stories and many things that I could talk about, but some things are very private. That story I told you about the first time I cast the circle, just me mentioning those few vague things, is very deeply personal because a circle, as described, is its own separate entity and its own separate power sphere. What happens within the circle for most practitioners does not leave outside of the circle because that is our sacred space, that is our sacred place, that is literally where we commune with the god and the goddess. They can send us messages, we can receive them. We can connect with them on a spiritual level because we also believe as above, so below. I am them, they are me, we are connected together. There is no real between the divine and us, simply us trying to find that balance where we connect with the divine the best.
Okay, I got you. Well, we definitely don't want you to divulge anything that you feel would be too personal. Have you ever oh, sorry. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, when I worked with other practitioners in the past, actually, that may be solitary, but when I believe in something, we get together and we create kind of a power grid. So that way I can bring my energy and my beliefs and my intentions to the spell. So I've had that happen a few other times. Things that was very powerful. One time it happened the next day, I barely could get out of bed. I was so physically weak. My joints were stiff and sore, and there was no physical reason why I should have been in that condition, other than the metaphysical energy I put out and gave to that particular ritual.
I gotcha. So, have you ever witnessed anything supernatural? Something that even your faith in this practice of the craft can't explain?
My belief system lets me be open to spirits, ghosts, demons, angels, guardians, and what we would call the fae folk of the old country. I believe in, and I have actually at times witnessed different fae folk in my garden, and I swear I've seen them when I go into the ocean. Nothing to define other than I feel an entity with me. I see the outline of them in my mind's eye, and I can feel them, wondering what my intention is, feeling what my power is, respecting the distance that we give each other, and respecting ourselves as entities of a similar thread. And everyone has an ability, I think, to tap into magic, be it energetically or otherwise, but very few people recognize it. Very few people act upon it or put their will out there for fear of recrimination, for fear of attracting things that are more dark in nature than light, for fear itself. But if you're willing to confront that fear, to embrace your own strength, you can see so much more out there. It's hard for me to say that I haven't been able to find something to explain it away, because to me, some things don't need explanation. They just are. And that's, again, my personal belief set. Not every Wiccan out there believes in fairies, but a lot of us respect the fae folk in their space in the world.
Well, that's fascinating. I mean, you aren't the only one to have told me that you have witnessed these type of beings, these fairies and elves and whatnot. You really aren't the first one to tell me about that. Actually, I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now. But
they never show in the forefront of your mind. You'll see them out of the corner of your eye. They'll glint and they'll flicker. They will be not the Tinkerbell pixies that you always see. They could be gremlins that are rock-based. They could be part of nature in the trees. It's natural forms more often than not, that you have to have your mind open to believing that it's possible that they're there.
I understand. Well, Brittany, this has been really, really illuminating and fascinating for us. Is there anything that you feel like you didn't get to talk about that you want to share with us?
Well, I've mentioned the Wiccan law, and I've mentioned the rule of three, but what they derive from is called the Wiccan Reed. And it's not very long, but I feel that it should be spoken. Bid the Wiccan law ye must, in perfect love, in perfect trust. 8 words the Wiccan Reed fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will. What ye send forth comes back to thee, so ever mind the rule of three. Follow this with mind and heart, and merry ye meet, and merry ye part.
Okay.
And that is a very distinctly Wiccan belief and practice.
Well, that is...
Nearly every single Wiccan will abide by those rules and by those beliefs.
Well, that is awesome. Well, we are going to end the interview there, but Thank you so much for joining us and sharing this great information, Brittany, Cottage Witch of New England. It was great to have you here in the Productivity Zone. Thank you so much for joining us.
As I just said, merry we meet and merry we part. I bless this conversation because it's been a very positive one. I thank you for inviting me to do this interview.
And thank you so much. We loved every minute of it. All right. Well, we're gonna take a quick road trip, and Brittany, I'll just say one more thing while we're off the air. So stick around for a second. But we're gonna take a quick road trip. Be right back.